so quiet.
It should. Hey, hi folks. If you're joining us live or if you're watching us later on, we're going over chapter 3 today. The plan is tomorrow we'll start talking about chapter 4. Remember, if you're having a problem going on a Quizlet, just let me know. In the Google Classroom, I posted PDF copies of our vocab terms, and I might add another set to that. I'm not entirely sure how many of these terms we're going to use on our quiz coming up. However, if you're going to take the quiz through Google Classroom, I'm going to make an assignment there for you to do that on. But if you're here physically, I'm just going to try to get you paper, as long as the printer works. So let's go ahead and begin. All right, so first off with my images, right? So if there's one thing your book does is it gives us some good information. If there's one thing the book does not do is it doesn't talk to us about prehistoric Greeks. So how could somebody be prehistoric?
Before they were recorded.
Before they're recorded, yeah. So, I mean, sure, they're like talking. And here's the thing. Prehistoric Greeks had writing, like the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. But the thing is that we're not able to translate a lot of it. It's their form of writing was called, it's called wedge-shaped writing. I forgot the technical name for it. But basically, it's just they would use it just to count things, like how many sheep they had and things like that. It was used for tracking numbers. And so I put a timeline up here. And for those who are joining us on the live, I'm going to post all of this stuff in the Google Classroom if I haven't already. So you can go back through and see our images. And so you see the first age here, the Minoan age. And if you remember, we talked about the myth of King Minos, right? And the Minotaur. Well, this is related to that. Here, this goes all the way back from 3000 BC. So that means the dawn of this age was about 5,000 years ago. It's 3,000 years before Christ. So that's a really super long time ago. And here we see, it says the development of art and architecture. These people are related to the Greeks that we're going to talk about. Remember, Greece is made up of hundreds of islands. And so there's a lot there, kind of like the Philippines. Like I think there's like 700 islands in the Philippines. It's not just one landmass. So the Mycenaean age follows that. That's when we have the Trojan War. And here we have things get a little bit more advanced. And you see this is in the Bronze Age. So you don't have a lot of iron or steel working yet. And the Mycenaean age is going to be ended with kind of like a dark period. And so here we have a lot of chaos. You have a lot of migration of different tribes of people warring against each other. This is when those Achaeans from the Iliad that are the Spartans are going to get dominated by a new tribe called the Dorians. And those are going to be the Spartans we're going to talk about most of the time in historic Greece. And then after that, we'll talk about the Archaic Age, which is kind of where we're going into now with our current chapter. And the Classical Age, we're going to spend probably the most time on. This is where we're going to talk about the Golden Age of Athens. This is when a lot of the literature and the big art and stuff like that comes out, and the philosophy and all that. And the Hellenistic Age is going to be kind of like our in-between in many ways, between the Greek high point to the Romans. So let's see. Yeah. All right. So this is the inside of some Minoan ruins. So you see they've retouched up some of the painting and stuff like that. They had columns. For all I can tell, this could be, it looks like a bathtub. I kind of doubt it's a bathtub.
That probably is a bathtub back there.
Baptism center.
These people were way before Jesus, so I don't think they were like baptizing people.
That probably is a
That
bathtub.
could be a
Yeah,
waterfall.
could be.
A
Could be.
pool.
A bathroom house.
Could be a pool. Maybe they had something else they did with it. I
A
don't know.
fountain, it could be a fountain.
No,
Very
yeah.
strange fire pit.
What is like a fountain?
Water fountain.
What kind of fountain doors?
What kind of fountain is in the ground like that? You just stick your head in and drink as much water as you can?
I don't know.
Mm.
But here's the thing.
Alright.
So these people were like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. And
That's what
what you see here is they hadn't been doing pretty well because they're painting. They have the idea of architecture to where if you want to hold up a heavy ceiling, you need columns to hold that thing up. The stonework looks pretty smooth, pretty well thought out. A lot of places remember most places this time people were still hunting and gathering. A lot of people weren't even farming yet. They weren't even that advanced. Now the woodwork here is obviously newer. It's been restored a bit so that people can come visit it. Here we have some more artwork and stuff. Remember, this is an island. This is the island Crete, if I remember. And so they have paintings of dolphins and fish and stuff like that. You have some decorative artwork like these borders. Remember, your book told us that the Greeks really loved to put decorations on a lot of stuff. So even like pots.
We were talking about something in art yesterday,
Yeah.
where Michelangelo or whatever his name was.
Uh-huh. Okay. Oh yeah, he's gonna be super way later.
His name is it? She said his name is Michelangelo. I thought it was Michelangelo.
It's because we're Americans, so we say Michelangelo. But
Michelangelo.
yeah, in Italy they would have said Michelangelo. You know, right? We're American it. Now here's the thing though, that if you remember, we had the Greek, with the Minoans, we had the Greek myth of the Minotaur. Well, we do know from their artwork left behind that they did have like reverence for bulls, right? And that you see that in a lot of societies. You know, you got like golden calf and stuff like that.
Brazen bulls.
Brazen, well, yeah,
Oh,
kind of.
that's
The brazen
wrong.
bull wasn't worshipped.
That's a weird bull.
So what they're doing here is they had some kind of festival where they would have guys kind of like take turns jumping over a bull,
So it's like a bull run, but like,
like acrobatic.
yeah.
Honestly, I can't see its head.
If I didn't, it's on the left side.
I know, it doesn't even look like a head though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is artwork
It looks
from
like a
like
cone.
4,000 years ago. Back then, some people were still doing like cave drawings and stuff. So it's pretty good back then. Yeah.
It kind of looks like an ice cream cone. If you were to just like take it off.
What?
I did not.
I'm
see
really,
that.
I'm trying
see
so
that.
hard to see that.
I don't know, because the way like the face looks.
What?
And you think like the brown on top of it, chocolate ice cream.
What?
Oh,
That's a lot of ice cream.
You see
man.
things that I don't see. I'm sorry. No, that's cool. I mean, let's think
The
about-
Nordic. The
let's think about
Nordic.
art. Everybody sees something different. Everybody.
What do I?
It's the same with music. Everybody can listen to the same song and hear something a little different.
Those legs. I see a cow and two white dudes.
seriously,
Like,
look.
Yeah, they must hit the treadmill. All right, here's some more. Here we have, and does this look like any kind of ancient art you've ever seen before from another place?
Egypt.
Egypt, right? Yeah. Well, these people probably had contact with, if not directly with the Egyptians, the people who have had contact with them. So you see a lot, and that's one thing I mentioned
Oh,
before.
that's
Go
fine.
back.
Ancient Greeks, and of course Italians had a lot of contact with the Near East and also with the Egyptians. So a lot of culture rub off there.
Man,
Yeah, they got their posture going on there, kind of.
that's how Cheyenne walked last year. She like bent her back like that. It was horrible. It was funny though. I thought everybody said she had scoliosis.
Okay, moving on.
Everyone said she had scoliosis.
Here's some more from the site in Crete. So you see they kind of cleaned it up a little bit. Some of it, of course, is going to fall apart over time, possibly due to things like earthquakes and stuff like that, or natural erosion
Rain
and rain.
and wind.
I'm sure the paint is new, but that's one thing about these ancient ruins in a lot of these places, including many of the pyramids. They were actually painted. So they weren't just like bleached ugly. This is later on. This is, of course, from the Mycenaean age. This is from artwork from the time during the Trojan War, right?
I
So-
forgot something that looked like that besides Gru.
So yeah, you have the army of Grus. You got like, see, they have their spears, but they also have on their spears, they have like bags. It's probably like where they kept their food and stuff when they were marching off to battle.
They should get snake venom and put it on the tips of their spears.
Snake.
What about them and
Yes.
legs?
So you stab them, it'll go.
I know some places would do that. Some Native American tribes would do things like that, but also in India, they're really well known for like fighting battles with poison blades. So it's
They
like
have that in Skyrim. Have you ever played Skyrim?
my brother's into it. He plays everything.
Winky.
Here's some more from the Mycenaean age. So
What's
here's
even happening?
Is he a nerd?
Color's hurt.
yeah, I think these are probably ladies. Yeah,
No.
they're holding some
Ooh.
stuff. Got some flowers and some berries
They're
and
doing some rituals.
a little jar. Maybe they are. Maybe it might be part of religious procession. Hey, so this artwork or this here, see the guy on the left?
Yeah.
That armor there was actually excavated from Troy. So they know that, and it's from the same time period, and they think around the Trojan Wars could have happened. So, like, they think that that's probably how the Greeks from the Iliad may have armored up if they were like pretty wealthy. It's like bronze that's been hammered into sheets and then stitched together with leather. So it's kind of simple, kind of crude looking in a lot of ways, but it was innovative at the time. You
I
know,
like the
the-
guy on the
What if
right.
someone just got it right in the toes?
the guy on the right is from more of the classical age of Greeks. When we start talking about the golden age and stuff.
That's a pretty
So that's when they have them wearing armor that might have been provided by the citizens or something like that. Because like in places like Athens, if you're a citizen, you're expected to also be a soldier. But that means you got to pay for your own armor and weapons and stuff like that. So there are certain responsibilities for being a citizen.
What if they got them in the toes?
Got them, then you got your toes cut off.
Then you won't be able to walk.
You gotta
If get
tough it
your toes
out.
cut off, you have
Better
Is
hobble
there
along.
to learn how to walk.
Yeah.
Wait, you can't talk, you can't walk every time your toe?
No, you have to completely relearn how to walk.
Look at this.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a lot harder. This is a painting that's not Greek, but it's supposed to
How did
depict
you cut that in
the Oracle of Delphi, right? And so the Oracle of Delphi was on Mount Parnassus, I think, and the story goes is there's like this opening into the mountain that was supposed to let out some kind of gas. It's like, and they said that the gas kind of intoxicated the girl who was the Oracle, who was supposed to sit there and breathe it in until it kind of messed her brain up. And then she would go babbling on whenever people would ask a question. The priests who were there would write it down, and they would pretend to understand what she was saying. And then whenever they would answer the question in a way to where they couldn't be wrong, where it's like a riddle, right? These guys got very rich doing this. People from around the known world at this time would send lots of wealth and stuff like that, trying to get answers to certain questions.
So all you have to do is be smart and you make money.
Yeah, well, kind of, yeah. I mean, we all know that there was no Apollo telling this girl to like say crazy stuff to answer people's questions. But to them, no, I'm not saying they didn't believe it. Maybe they really did believe what they were doing. I don't know. But even the Greeks were often cynical about the priest here and kind of would say like, we know they were probably just scamming them, you know. Yeah.
It looks like Osama bin Laden.
It's like a fortune teller for them. It's like when you go to a fortune teller
Why?
just to experience it, not because you believe in fortune telling.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. However,
Or
This-
something is creepy.
people often were very superstitious. And that's one thing about polytheists, people who believe in more than one God, is like they'll even believe in other people's religions and kind of adapt it to their own. So they're just kind of like, whatever. Any of them's okay.
What
Kinda.
year was this?
Well, this, like the Oracle of Delphi could have been like anywhere from like a 1000 BC, I think.
So what does BC stand for?
Before
Christ.
Yeah, before Christ, or if you say BCE, before Common Era.
Yeah,
then you
'cause
go.
I thought they changed that.
Yeah, you can go with either way. Nobody's gonna get on to you.
BC is just easier to say.
This is
Oh,
your story talks about
Oh, no, it was.
Croesus of Lydia. We'll talk more about Croesus later, but Croesus is famous because he's known as the inventor of coin money. So this is one of the first coins ever made. Before that, people had to
It's a
barter.
rock.
No, it's silver.
That looks like a
It's
rock.
not totally refined, but it's like a lion and a bull, right? Well, see, the thing is, before people started using coins, if they wanted to buy something, they had to barter. So if you were somebody who was really good at raising cattle, but you needed some salt, well, there's no refrigeration, so you can't just sell steaks. You got to sell the whole cow, and you don't just sell it; you got to trade it. So it's like, I need salt. I grow cows. Hey, I'll give you a cow for a whole cow's worth of salt. So you might not need a whole cow's worth of
You
salt.
said you grow cows.
No, my example.
That'd be cool if you could.
Raise cattle, whatever.
That could
So-
be cool though.
In any case, the point is that if you have something, it's hard to break up some things and get their true worth out of it. Coins let you get real worth out of something because you can break it down into smaller bits or bigger bits, either way you need to. It makes trade more easy. That's why we use money today. All right, and it's kind of do it for today. There we go. Cool kids. All right, so let's get what we can today before we have to leave. And we leave at what time?
9:50.
9:50. All right, good. Come back in.
9 o'clock.
Yes. Yes. we did.
9:17.
All right, so
9:20.
9:17.
Greek homes.
17.
So they're not talking about everyday Greeks in this part. We will talk more about normal everyday Greeks homes in a bit. So what were Greek homes like for the princes when they were talking about like the rich people and stuff like that in super early times? Made of gold? No.
There had dogs made of gold.
Oh, they could.
If they were
Yeah.
really, really rich.
Okay.
They
Okay.
were humongous, like stone, like they were like a village almost. or something.
Yeah. So the wealthy.
Had a fortress.
Yeah. Now, why would you make your house like a fortress?
Because of anyone attack.
You got lots of money.
Thank you.
Where?
In fortified homes.
Like in the
They had weapons, money, food.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's where they stored wealth, food, and protection. Yeah.
So basically, you won't have to leave that place at all.
Yeah, they didn't have banks. They didn't have a place to put your money. They didn't have police, so you and your hired people would have to do the defense. They didn't have stores really to go buy food, so you had to like have your farms, and then you had to store your grain or dried out meats and fruits and stuff like that. So you had to get ready for the winters and things. So yeah, so you had to be self-sufficient. But it doesn't mean you were just like one person or one family. Like these homes were like a communal thing in that you would have like ancient Hebrews and stuff like that. You would have one person who's the master of the household, and then they have their servants. And the servants could either be free people or slaves, which was normal throughout most of history. And they would all kind of live together to serve their master and to make sure they all kind of survived, right? So it's kind of like a tribal thing in a lot of ways. Now, Greek manners, like as in Greek customs. What were some of the Greek customs that they mentioned in our readings?
You couldn't hurt a house guest.
Yeah. So you had to be a good host.
But weren't they all treated the same when it came to dinner?
No
Yes.
matter who it is, if it was a stranger, your worst enemy or your best friend, you all treated them the same.
Yeah, to all. So that's to everybody. And whenever you read the Iliad, you see that that's a really big part of the Iliad too. It's like you're supposed to be a good
So if you
host.
wanted to kill someone, like,
What?
who came into your house, you'd have to like go send them off on a mission, so they would die there.
Something
And
like
no one
that.
else.
Yeah. You couldn't do it if they were your guests because then you would expect divine retribution from the sky people or something like that.
But it's like, no, it's like when they come to your house and like, hey, yo, I'm a young child looking for adventure. And it's like, let me send you off on something where you'll definitely die.
He's blind.
Well, this thing here, the idea of being a good host, it mostly pertains to the wealthy Greeks, but also you're going to see that this custom is going to pass on in Europe and stick around there for a long time. You're going to find that monarchs and nobles all the way in Christian Europe are still going to have this tradition of being a good host. Whenever you have a guest, you might give them a gift, treat them to a nice meal, stuff like that. But good manners was also that you weren't supposed to take advantage of it and like stick around for like years, and like kind of loaf off of them. Couldn't be a couch surfer. So was there anything else for their customs and manners that we picked up besides being a good host? No? Okay. Hey, what, yeah, early education, I mean, like, did they go to school?
No.
No school. Okay. So what else?
They learned how to, everyone learned how to sing and dance
Yeah. So where did they learn these things?
from their parents and stuff.
Yeah. Learn at home. So they were homeschoolers from
Everyone at home
parents.
how to sing and dance.
Yeah. But so like singing, yeah, and singing wasn't just about like, hey, you got a pretty voice. It's also, remember, singing is how they would pass on their stories and their histories and stuff like that. And dancing, it could be entertainment, but also I guess it keeps you healthy.
Weaponry, and cleaning and cooking.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. That's where we separate between boys and girls, because there's some things the Greeks would be like a Greek would never train their daughter how to fight, and they would never train their son how to cook.
But what if their daughter wanted to fight?
They would
She could
say
become a
no.
huntress of Artemis.
They'd be like, no, shush. Like, we're gonna, like, remember,
Mulan didn't
That would-
exist
that
yet.
would
She's
take
a
it
cow.
yeah. All right, so boys learn farming and fighting.
Mulan was a real person. Yes.
Mulan. That's coming
It wasn't
from Disney Plus.
It wasn't exactly like the Disney movie, obviously, but it was something similar.
Girls learn cooking and weaving. So, yeah, here's the thing.
Not
Yes,
that
that's how they get their hair.
No, not that kind of weave. Like, there was no factories and stuff, but look, people wore clothing, and it was cloth clothing. It wasn't like animal skins. So they got that from wool, which of course came off of sheep, and they got it off of linen, which came off of flax plants. They didn't have like cotton right here, right? And so that would take time. That would take time. They'd have to get the threads. They had to weave it into threads, and then put it on a loom and make sheets.
I would be so bad. I tried to weave before it's not.
Well, this is something that they had to practice. It was a real skill. And so, yeah, it would take like your whole childhood to learn how to do it well. And that was supposed to be one of those things you're supposed to do. Yes, sir. Beads? Beads, no. That's, well, I mean, silk comes from worms, but
Because they always get
yeah, linen comes from a plant.
So one have enough food, they get their practice when they're
Huh?
You should have brought the extra.
Oh, Johnson. Oh.
You're such a boomer. No, I am boomers also.
Okay, I get it.
I'm not a boomer, but the extra rings.
Alright.
Oh, did they buy these? I didn't bring these rings, and I was like.
I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad joke.
Yeah.
It's just,
I'm
it's
not saying it's a good one either.
It's not my sense of humor. Hey, all right, so moving on. So, they believed in an afterlife. It was not a very good sounding afterlife. So what was their afterlife like?
Kind of boring.
Boring.
Lame.
It's boring and plain.
Yeah, boring
That's not very good description.
for most people. So,
Boring. Or.
so if it was boring for most people, what do you think they thought about life?
Let's party.
It sucks.
Well, no, life.
It's
Like
pretty
life,
epic. Let's have a
Yeah,
party.
life as in living.
Well, see, that's the
It
thing though.
sucks. That's probably what they thought.
Well, the
They
thing
went to
is,
Hades. They thought they went to Hades.
yeah, they thought they would. Yeah, they called it Hades, and which was also the name of like supposed to be the Greek god that was in charge of it, right? And so, yeah. So what it led. The thing is though, is Greeks didn't like hedonism. Like they didn't think the idea that you're supposed to like have wanton parties and stuff like that. Though they did like enjoyment. It was about trying to live a life of fulfillment. So
Didn't they think that the poor would go to Hades?
a what?
The poor.
Yeah, pretty much.
Uh,
Like only heroes were supposed to go to Elysium. I probably misspelled fulfillment. I forgive myself.
Yeah, me too.
And so the idea was, remember, their religion was not very happy. They didn't believe that their little g gods cared about people. They were kind of like something that they would try to get favors from. And you see this through other polytheist societies. It's not going to be until monotheism where you start having the idea where people have a personal God that cares about them, right? So that's going to be after this time. All right, so speaking of, and I kind of just gave the answer, what did they think about their gods?
they hated
They're
it.
petty. But
Petty,
They
yeah.
often L on fulfillment for the full part of it.
Petty, yeah, so it could be bargained with. Like if you made him happy.
Wow.
All right. Just say,
You said you're dyslexic?
yeah,
Could be bargained with.
say bargain. Perfect. All
Or
right, there, fill that. All right. But really, that kind of sums it up. They believe different ones had different like sky people powers and stuff like that. They all kind of signify different things. Like Hera could signify like jealousy, but also motherhood. Zeus could signify lust, but also fatherhood. You know, Athena.
Zeus? He was a man, you know what?
Okay, so Apollo could be like the noble son. Athena is the noble daughter, and also warrior and stuff. So, of course, there's more to it. There's a lot more to that. So, sure, talk about like each one. Hey, what about athletics? So, did they take it seriously?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Athletics were for the gods.
yeah. So, especially like things like races. We're talking about the early
What
ones.
races?
Yeah, no. So races, to have other festivals. And they were religious. Remember, with most people throughout most time, everything had some religious context to it. It's kind of like a modern thing where you kind of secularize and separate things. Little g gods. Hey, and one of them is the Olympics, right?
Mhm.
When did they start recording the names of the Olympics? Like the people who win it? When it
In 776 BC.
Yep.
so 776 BC, first record Olympic victors. And yet this is when we start seeing the beginning of more standard Greek writing. So we call this kind of like the beginning of history. Because if you have a list of names for people who win something, that's a historical record. And so that date might be important to you. because in our actual test, the tests are going to be essay based. We give you some prompts. You're going to pick a couple. You handwrite a couple of essays. And if you put names and dates and battles or stuff like that in it, you're more likely to make a good A. But if you neglect names, dates, and stuff like that, you might kind of go down more toward, your grade might not be that great. But the most important thing is you know what you're talking about. We'll talk more about that later. I'll model the testing for you and show how it's going to be later on. All right, folks, that's going to end our lecture today. Come back again at 9 o'clock tomorrow, and we're going to talk about Chapter 4. Goodbye. Oh.
You said.
I'm talking to them. I'm not talking to you.
Oh,